hungry? Are you thirsty? Oh, won't you tell me what you need? Oh, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Tell me what you need.
Tracy, this gig that we're going to do is all down to you, basically. So, tell us how this happened. Tell us a bit about how this came out, because it was your idea. So
yeah, so I have been a FAF fan forever. It was back at the beginning of the year when we were in lockdown again, and it was just that I need something to get me through this. So what else do you do but crack open your Fat and Frantic playlist just to help you get through lockdown? And I had this crazy thought. See, we don't get any government funding at Help Harry. We have to raise everything ourselves, and most of that falls on Georgie's shoulders, to be fair. But obviously when we went into lockdown, everything stopped. All our fundraising had to stop. And, you know, like a lot of charities, small charities, that just have a massive impact. So I had this crazy idea that I thought, this is never going to work, but if you don't ask the question, then you just don't know. So I messaged you guys and said, look, this is a bit bonkers, this is a bit mad, but would you consider doing an online gig to raise money for Help Harry, Help Others? And you blew my mind because you came back and you said yes. So excited, so excited.
That's great. Just go back a bit further. Tell us a bit about how long have you been a FAF fan for? What are your earliest memories of?
So you guys came to Tunbridge in Kent.
Not me, by the way. Them.
No, you weren't in the band at that point.
Yeah.
There were dive bombing off of speakers going on at the time, off the big speakers. I'm not sure if that was you, Silas, or Jim.
No, that would have been Jim.
Jim.
and then I'd have probably had a go, but I'd have got off like the high diving board. Jim would have been on the high diving board, in other words, the high speaker. I'd have taken the small one.
Right.
When would that have been? What year would that have been, that gig?
Oh my goodness, I don't know, but I was in my teenage years. I was in the youth group that was called Cypher at the time. Right. So sort of 14 to 17, 18, that sort of age.
Okay. And so the venue was a church, was it, or?
No, it was in a hall in the local leisure centre.
Okay. Do you remember this gig, Silas?
Yeah, I remember it well. I remember you, Tracy.
But then years later, I moved to Birmingham, and I went to a church there, and it was my first time visiting there. And I'm looking at this guy in the music group, and I'm thinking, I know this guy. Where do I know this guy from? And it was just in the moment when it was really, really quiet where it came to me that Nigel was in Fat and Frantic, and I suddenly were going, in just that quiet moment. But I have memories of being at New Wine, and actually I think there's on one of your videos, there's me and my friend. Actually, you can see us at the very front of the gig, knowing all the words to everything. You guys have just been a constant playlist for me.
That's fantastic. How many gigs do you think you've been to?
6 or 7, maybe.
Wow. And you were at the one in Leicester when we did that Reform tour. I remember that.
Yeah, actually, I went to the London one.
And
I remember lying on my back on the floor to Werewolf, thinking, "What the heck are we doing?
Yeah, right.
We're not 14 anymore. What am I doing right now?"
That's what we think all the time.
You know, I have the privilege of working with this incredible charity, supporting people going through cancer, or their loved ones who are going through cancer, or people who have lost someone to cancer. What we heard through COVID was horrendous. People not being able to be with their loved ones when they passed away, or having to look through a window as their loved one passed away, not being able to hold their hand. Absolutely horrendous. But none of this would be happening without Harry and without Georgie and what they did and how it started. We couldn't be here doing what we're doing today without Harry and without Georgie carrying on his legacy.
And I know that's a huge story, Georgie, but give us the sort of overview. Tell us a bit about how this happened and why this is so important to you.
Well, Harry is the brainchild of it, not me, and I would never take that credit away from Harry. He knew at the age, he was diagnosed with cancer when he was 7. He knew that there wasn't enough being done for people affected by cancer. And he wanted to do something about it, but actually a very unlikely friendship blossomed when Harry had to go. He had chemotherapy, sadly that didn't work, and then when he started radiotherapy, he met a chap called Robert Harley, who was a 55-year-old businessman, and a very unlikely friendship blossomed. And then when Harry heard that his friend was getting poorly, Harry said, "Mum, I've got to do something to try and help Robert get better." Endless visits to the Children's Hospital in Birmingham, walking through town. He said, "I don't want to shake a bucket. I want to give people a present if they give me a donation, for research." And that's when I, took him to a hobbycraft, and he then started making, his beaded bracelets. So, and that was it, how Harry was born. He selected the name, the branding, everything. And he was just really passionate about helping. For Harry, it was about him helping his friend, but Harry didn't realise he was helping me because I felt so helpless. And whilst Harry was doing it for his friend Robert, I was doing it to help Harry, hoping that one day a cure would be found. And sadly, we wouldn't have the outcome that we did. Cutting a long story short, in the last 2 years of Harry's life, from the age of 9 when he started to help Harry to the age of 11 when he passed away, he raised over £750,000 for other charities, and that rose to £1.2 million after he died, because the impact, it was like we didn't realise the impact that Harry had on everyone. But he used to, he was forever in London. He spoke at the House of Commons to the England footballers team, and these weren't treats, these were events that Harry was working at and speaking at. So, and he used to always say, "You don't have to be posh to be privileged, Mum," because Harry was a council estate boy, at the age of 9, and through the face of adversity, he proved, and I always say, he proved that regardless of your age, your wealth, your lifestyle and your well-being, you can achieve anything if you're passionate. And he taught me that, as Harry's mum. As you can imagine, when he died, our world just turned upside down. And still 10 years on, next week is the 10th anniversary of Harry's passing. So, so it'll be a very, tough time. Anniversaries are always the worst. But to see what his brother and sister endured, to see all the gaps and the frustrations when I had to give up work, and everything was just a waiting time, a referral process, a postcode lottery. So, and Harry had left this amazing legacy. And whilst I'd got no intention of continuing, because it was his work, I was like, well, without Harry, there is no help Harry, help others. I knew he would want me to, he always wanted it to be a registered charity, and I knew that I needed to carry on with it. So we set the charity up in 2012, got permission off Harry's brother and sister, because that was, it impacted on them so much. They were, only 11 and 14 when Harry was diagnosed. And Help Harry was born. And originally we set out with Help Cure, where we fund research, Help Cope, where we give grants to families suffering financial hardship, regardless of where they live. And then Help Care, we used to give money to other amazing charities before I had the idea of our very unique drop-in cancer support centre, which now on site, pre the pandemic, we offer over 20 services. Wow. So if people are having a bad day, they can just pop in, have a cuppa, and then there's a range of listening skills. Tracy does a fantastic job and heads up our whole emotional support and counselling. and you organise all that. And then we have, you know, bra fitting, wig fitting. We've got a new service this year, which is all about once they've dealt with their issues and problems and real complex stuff, we can then move them and help them to look forwards and rebuild their lives, and with a coaching and mentoring service. We do mindfulness days. Tracy's starting up a new support group, aren't you, which starts this Friday. You know, there are so many things, and basically, you know, we help with all the financial stuff as well. So we have a debt advisor, benefits advisor, housing advice. But for me, it was about having everything accessible in a home from home environment, which is very informal here, that's available from under one roof. Because all that time that was spent, an appointment here and the waiting time and travelling from A to B was time that I could have spent with Harry. So for people to come into a building and be familiar with all of us in one place, we retain all of their basic details, and then whatever service they need, you know, they're not constantly repeating themselves, and we're helping them through whatever process they need to go through. So it's a real privilege and an honour, but it's hard, you know. As Tracy said.
How has COVID affected what you do?
Massively. I think we've all had to paddle like the rest of the world, you know, across the top of the water, fast, to adapt all of our services overnight to being online. We have not stopped. I think, if anything, I'm sure you'll agree, Tracy, we've worked harder through the pandemic because cancer doesn't stop because of a pandemic, you know. And I get quite angry that, you know, it would be very easy of us to say, well, sorry, our doors are closed, but that's not the ethos of us as a charity. So if anything, we were very conscious and focused on listening to clients, and through Tracy and the team of we've got about 15 listeners and counsellors now, haven't we? So, you know, we offer very big service, but we're a very small team. So as well as the amazing Tracy, there's only Kelly, who's an employee, who's office and finance manager, and myself. We are the trio really here, aren't we? But we have amazing service providers and volunteers. The service providers, we pay for their time as and when they come in, and their speciality, and, you know, their professionalism and whatever service that is. And we have some incredible listening volunteers as well, and counselling volunteers. So
it sounds like an incredible endeavour, and obviously it's an amazing legacy from Harry anyway. And it just sounds like you guys are doing just a spectacular job.
Thank you.
Oh, I can't even begin to. You know, I thought I was busy through through COVID.
Yeah, I think the thing that has really drawn me, particularly, I mean, I've only really been in contact with you properly, Georgie, for a couple of weeks, but that conversation we had, it took me back to my own journey with my sister, who got cancer when she was, I think she was diagnosed when she was 32. So she had 13 years with various cancers, but it was the brain cancer that was the most shocking one for me and for us, I think, to handle, is because when, you know, she started having blackouts and fits and stuff like that, and hearing that Harry had you know brain cancer, and so the first thing was it was just amazing to be able to just talk to you, and feeling like we had this thing in common, not just cancer but actually brain cancer, and just suddenly feel like this person gets it. And the thing I realized, and this is why I think your charity is so unique, is that yes, I had my family at that time, but we didn't have anyone. It's almost like you felt lonely. You didn't quite know what to do, say. We were all responding, my siblings, my mum, my dad, responding in different ways, but we were responding in our sort of private ways. And to have someone, a charity where you can go to someone slightly outside the intensity of the family situation to then have people who get it and to help you as you go through the trauma. I remember in 2006, waking up the beginning of January 2006, knowing that my sister had it was terminal, and thinking, I just want to wake up in 2007, in a year's time, and to hear how it went. I don't want to face 2006. I remember. I don't want to face having the calls. I don't want to face getting text messages. I don't want to face the idea of seeing there's a call or an email coming in from the family, because it's either going to be a high because there's been a good scan result, or it's going to be a low. And actually it's this downward spiral. And I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night and go through the trauma of that. I just, please just take this year away from me, because it is actually the pain that you feel inside and the hopelessness you feel inside. And then to think that you guys will set something up to help people on that journey. We've got 3 people, I think, in our church at the moment who've got either had cancer just very recently or are having cancer. I've got it now. And, it's such a hard journey. So you guys have inspired me, and I wish I'd met Harry.
Oh, he's giving you a lot of cheek, I can tell you that. He was a very cheeky chappy, but a lovable cheeky chappy, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And actually in his photo.
Sorry?
I saw his photo, and I just thought,
the face fits.
What a lovely
cheek. Yeah, and it was the humour, and everybody, I think, cancer doesn't necessarily, sadly, Silas, you've been through loss. I've obviously experienced loss with Harry, but we have lots of people come through the other side. But actually, even with that, a lot of people crumble when they come through the other side, and because they're just lost in life, and everything as they knew it, their routine and lifestyle has been whipped away. They've just gotten used to this new normality of hospital and routine and whatever that looks like. And then the comfort blanket of hospital is being taken away again. And it's almost like they go back like a child, and they've got to learn to walk and run again and rebuild whoever the new you is. And I say the new you because people do change through, sadly, what they've experienced. So there's so many aspects of how it can impact on you, and it doesn't stop, whatever the outcome, the story, whatever the time as well. I used to get very frustrated because quite often when you go through a cancer journey, everything's a cut off. So people were in touch with us until 3 months after Harry died, and then it was almost like, well, okay, go on and get on with your life. It doesn't work like that, it takes probably 12 months to even, I think you're in shock and almost denial, and it takes, everybody's individual. It didn't hit me the first year, and I found as the years went on, it got harder and harder to deal with and accept. And even to this day, 10 years on, the anniversary on the 8th is going to feel as raw as though it was yesterday,
Sure.
And I know my children at the moment, we're both thinking that, wow, next year, 11 years, he will have been gone as many years as he was alive. And we're really struggling to get our heads around that, because it just feels, it's the one thing that I think where time is irrelevant, if that makes sense. When you're dealing with loss, time is very precious, but I think it's also irrelevant when it comes, and you can't just put something in a tick box, because everybody is individual, and their experiences and how they cope and go through stuff is very unique to them.
I think what you do is incredible, and the way that you do it, the culture or the values around what you're doing, you seem to be incredibly real and emotionally present and emotionally literate, whilst also maintaining hope and obviously a lot of care and dignity and helping people process. And I think that's just a really beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a real pleasure.
Tracy, you mentioned, or I think Georgie mentioned that on Friday you're starting a new group or something. What's that? What's the group you're starting?
So we're doing a breast cancer support group. So it is for people who are currently going through it, and also people who have been through it and are perhaps still struggling with the outcome of that. And you know, as Georgie said, that even if the outcome is good, even if that outcome is good and someone survives it, they are forever changed by their experience. They're not the same person that they were before, and adapting to that and changing to this new person that they are can be really, really tough. And living with the fear of will it come back, and if it will, when will it come back, and all those things. So the support group that starts on Friday is for breast cancer. In the new year, we're looking at doing one for men and men's cancer. And we'll also be looking at doing one for carers as well, and those that, you know, care for somebody. They love who has got cancer.
Wow.
I think what Tracy, you know, she's very modest in this because Tracy's prepared all of this herself. I mean, I'm very good at the ideas, but I'm not a counsellor, you know, so I'm happy to sit and have a coffee with somebody, and quite often we do get clients who want to see me because I've lived and breathed it as a mom. You know, it might be another parent, for example, but Tracy has wrote all of the content herself. But it's not that they just come in and have a coffee. There's a set structure, and I'll pass back to Tracy, but it's a 10-week program. And again, I think it's something that's quite unique in terms of when you think of a support group. So there's a topic each week, isn't there, Tracy? I'll let you tell them because it's your material that you've written.
Yeah, I didn't want it to just be a coffee morning. I wanted it to be a safe therapeutic space where people can actually talk about their experiences and process it. But so it's going to be led by a qualified counsellor. She's not currently practicing as a counsellor at the moment, but she is a qualified counsellor and a breast cancer survivor. Wow. So the two of them together will lead the group, and they'll have the topics to kind of think through, talk through, process through, but keeping it as safe as can be for those that are actually going through it.
Amazing. That sounds fantastic.
That's what, Nigel, that's what I love about it, because I think for those of us who were there, like on Saturday, and any of the guys who tune into the YouTube, you know, the gig, actually to hear what is unique about this charity. And I think I love the idea. It's practically getting in there in the middle of the pain and just really practical care. And there's nothing better than having a charity that's actually saying we're there to listen, we're there to equip, we walk alongside. But also the idea, what I love about it is what you just said there, Tracy, was you're going to have someone who's had breast cancer right in there. Because when you go through something, when you're talking to people and you know that the person you're talking to gets it because they've gone through it, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And you guys get it. And so, you know, this is why Help Harry, Help Others is unique. And that's why we want to support you. And if we can just raise some pennies towards it, well, hopefully more than pennies, lots of pounds, then it will bless us. It is a privilege for us as a band to be able to play our nonsense, because quite a lot of it is nonsense. Actually, no, that was just the songs I wrote, I think. To do it for you, for such a worthy cause. So thank you. You know,
obviously people can support you by giving specifically to your Just Giving page, which we're going to be plugging all the way through the gig. That's the first thing. secondly, they can go to your website and see what you're doing, and there's YouTube videos as well. And then just tell us about the bracelets, Tracy, because we've heard about the story with Harry and bracelets. You've got a special one that you've made for this gig?
So now Fat and Frantic have their very own Harry bracelet. So I'm wearing it here.
Hey.
I'm not in my office. I've left mine on the desk.
No
There we go. So the colours are inspired by the Dancing Man logo. So red and white, but the white ones glow in the dark, so even better.
Nice.
You can go to the website and purchase your Fat and Frantic charity gig bracelet for £3. That includes postage and packaging.
Amazing.
So yeah, get on the website. It's up there already. Get your Dancing Man Fat and Frantic bracelet and
brilliant.
Wear it on Saturday night.
Fantastic. So that's from the Help Harry website. They can get them. And you've sent me some, so we're all going to be wearing them at the gig as well, which will be great. So,
Fabulous.
All right. Guys, that's absolutely brilliant. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Really appreciate
It's
it.
a real pleasure. And I also want to mention Paul Burton, who is running the studio, all the sound and light, and giving the whole thing for free, including all this crew, which is amazing. That's the Old Chapel Studios. So, yeah, we are really looking forward to it. And I just hope that it can raise tons of cash. And even more than that, just loads more awareness of what you guys are doing. So.
And that, I think, Nigel, is, from our perspective, of course, we rely on our own fundraising and that of the general public, and it's been hard since the pandemic, but it's not just this gig. What you're doing is not just about the fundraising, because you might be performing to somebody who is going through cancer or affected by it, not just the patient, but the relative, the work colleague, the friend, the sibling, whoever. Everybody gets affected, and actually they might not know that we're here to help. And if we can get one person get in touch that's found us because of what you're doing, then that's an amazing thing, because that will change their life. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
One of the things that the pandemic has meant is that we can offer support online. So, yeah, if you're local to Birmingham and you need support, then come and walk through our doors. But if you're not local to Birmingham and you still need some support, just get in touch. We can still support you.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. That's absolutely awesome.
Oh, won't you tell me what you need? Come on.